All right, so I'm going to go through the skin model, and you've got a picture of this exact model online, and you can practice labeling it. You'll have to be able to identify the parts and their functions on the exam. So first of all, for human bio here, you just have to know from here to here is the epidermis. So this is your epidermis. It's a lot of layers of cells. It's about 30 layers of 30 layers of cells, but it's only as thick as a piece of paper. And your epidermis's primary job is to protect you from having anything penetrate and get down into your bloodstream. Most of your epidermis, the top layer up here, is a layer of dead cells. This layer, this blue, dark blue, convoluted layer, that is the layer that contains the cells that are actively doing mitosis to make new skin cells, and then the skin cells migrate up to the top, and as they do, they die. And when they're dead, they're full of keratin, and that keratin is waterproof, or I should say water resistant, because some water can get in. If it didn't, we wouldn't have, after you're in a bathtub for an extended period of time, you can start to wrinkle because the water is filling those dead cells and puffing them up. So it's water resistant. But those dead layers here, or they die as they go up, they are then resistant to anything getting into them. Your skin's your best defense against bacterial invasion, viral invasion, fungal invasion, any pathogen. You can see these raised areas here. These are called dermal papillae. These are actually part of your dermis. They give more surface area so that your blood vessels can diffuse oxygen and diffuse food into this bottom layer of cells of the epidermis that are actively dividing. Then from here to here is called your dermis. This is your hide. So when you buy a leather purse or leather shoes, that's the dermis of the animal. And they've scraped off any fat, and they've scraped off any fur, and what you're left with is the leather, and that's your dermis, your hide. All kinds of things are in there that you need to know. First of all, blood vessels. And you can see that they go right up to where the epidermis starts. You also have all kinds of nerve endings. When you get to A&P1, you get to learn all the different names. Here, you can just call these all sensory nerve endings, and they are there to feel heat and cold, to feel pressure, to feel pain. Then, this structure here in white, you'll see it has a duct that goes all the way to the surface of the skin. This is a sweat gland. There are different kinds of sweat glands. You'll learn those in A&P1. You don't have to learn them in here. You just have to know this is a sweat gland. This particular sweat gland, since the duct goes all the way to the top, these are the most common sweat glands, and they should not produce any odor. This big green blob is an odoriferous one. We only find those under the arm, in the axillary, you should know that term, and in the inguinal area, the groin area. And they produce additives that produce scents, smell. They go into the hair shaft. They don't show very well here. Here's your hair. So above here is the shaft of the hair. The hair is wrapped in a follicle. I never really go into all the parts of the hair. Hair bulb is down here. The actively growing part of the hair is way down here. And then it pushes up, and again, just like skin cells, as they push to the surface, the cells die, and so what you're left with up here are dead cells held together by your cuticle. That's why if you tear the cuticle, the hair looks different and it's not healthy because now it's not structured anymore. There are pigmented cells in your epidermis, and there's pigmented cells down here in the hair root, and they are producing, of course, the color in the hair and the color in the skin. It's called melanin. It's made in melanocytes. Then we've got wrapped around the hair is this big purple blob. that's a oil gland or sebaceous gland, and that produces the oil that moves up and of course coats the hair, keeping it nice and healthy and supple, and also keeping the skin nice and supple. If you have really oily skin now, you'll be less wrinkly when you're older, so there's a big plus. Great, they're doing something. You can see here, this is actually a nerve going up to the hair. And then this is a muscle. This is called the erector pili muscle. And the erector pili muscle is what makes your hair stand on end. And it is triggered by the sympathetic nervous system. If you're scared or if you're mad, those hairs will stand erect. You've seen dogs puff up around the nape of their neck. That's from the erector pili muscles. It also, when you get cold and we want more blood flow to the surface of the skin, then the erector pili muscles cause that to happen too. And you get goosebumps. And those goosebumps are involuntary muscle contractions to help pull more blood flow to the surface of the skin. And I should say not directly the surface because it's only in the dermis and then it diffuses up. From here to here is called the hypodermis. The hypodermis or subdermis dermal layer, that contains mostly adipose tissue or fat. There's some areolar tissue there too. This is for cushioning. This is for insulation. When you grab your skin and you pull it up, actually the majority of what you're touching or feeling in there is your hypodermis layer, most of your fat. So we do pinch tests to measure your percent body fat. Okay, so make sure you know those three layers, the hypodermis or the subdermal layer, the dermis, and the epidermis, and then the structures within the dermis. That's it for skin.